Larry G, welcome to Truckin' On.
Thanks for having me, man.
I don't even know how to pronounce your last name. Your real last name.
Gayao.
That's easy. That's what I would have guessed, but I didn't want to butcher it.
That's actually the reason why we went with G when it was all birth, is because no one can pronounce that name.
Larry G, that's how I know you. That's how I'll always know you.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasure to have you here on Truckin' On, brother.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm really looking forward to our conversation, catching up.
It's crazy to think, but I don't think I've seen you since New Year's Eve 2013.
I was thinking the same thing. It's been that long.
I remember that year very clearly because it was the year of the party police for me.
Yes.
And
y'all were amazing, man. That was so much fun.
We had so much fun. It was like a 1 year and a few months project of my, so like a year of my life.
Yeah.
And, but it was a very impactful, creative endeavor. And we had so much fun, and you guessed on one of our songs and then brought us onto that show to open up for you guys.
Yeah.
And that was so cool. Was it Southside?
Yes.
Right?
Southside Ballroom.
That's
Gillies. Yeah,
Gillies. And I just reached out to you back then on Twitter. I remember.
Really?
And I'd never met you before, but I followed you. I'd seen you play, and I wanted you to be on this song.
Okay.
And so I hit you up on Twitter. I DM'd you, and then you came over to John's and recorded.
I remember going to John's and doing it there. Yeah.
Our song Costa Rica.
Oh my, it's so long ago, man.
I know.
That is crazy.
That's 12 years.
I was in such my life was so different back then.
Yeah.
So I was like a different person too.
That is how I met Bo Bedford.
Yeah.
Because he was your band leader.
Yes, he was.
And we performed that song, the Party Police song, with you and your band on stage.
Yeah.
And that was just so cool. Like basically like Texas Gentlemen before the Texas Gentlemen.
Texas Gentlemen before the Texas Gentlemen. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So much fun. And, and it's funny. You have these like little moments in life like that we've had, but I feel super connected to you, and we keep in touch on social media. I followed your career and your story. I like to start this going back to the early years.
Sure.
So age 12 to 22.
Okay.
What happened in your life, during those formative years that you think impacted you in a big way?
It was in high school. My freshman year, I was at a boarding academy, and a super shy, timid guy, but there was a quartet or a quintet, something like that, an a cappella group, and I was just a freshman. These guys are like seniors, and one of the guys in the group had gotten sick, and so they were like, hey, we need someone to sing in his place. Larry, would you be willing to do it? They asked me out of the blue, and I was like, yeah, I'll give it a try. And I remember learning the song, and I remember performing it. It was a gospel song. It was this song called Shut the Door, Keep Out the Devil. And I remember the feeling that I felt from the energy from the people when I sang the song. And I was like, I want to do this.
That was the first time you sang?
That was the first time that I really sang something soulful.
Yeah.
And I saw the reaction from the people. If I'm being honest, the girls, I was like, yeah, I want to do this. That definitely was something that changed my life right there.
So you went to boarding school?
Yes.
And starting in ninth grade?
Ninth grade.
Where were you before that? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in West Texas.
Okay.
So I was born in Abilene, Texas, lived 20 miles away in a city called Baird, super small.
Okay.
My dad was a physician, the only physician there in town. And we went to, I was raised in a Christian household. My parents sent me to for elementary and middle school, it was all through this church school that I went to.
Okay.
And the church school's religion was also connected to the high school where I eventually went to for boarding academy. So it was a pretty strict upbringing per se, but I always tell people I learned so much of like the other things at these boarding academies because you've got a lot of kids who want to do other things that they're not supposed to do.
Yeah, and you're there without parents in high school.
You're there without parents in high school. Yeah, pretty much.
I went to high school here, but I went to Brown University. So there's lots of boarding school kids that go to Brown.
Yes.
And I was just like the most innocent bumpkin from Texas compared to like these New England boarding school kids who had like, been living like a collegiate life of partying through high school.
Yeah.
And there was just like this different level.
There was a lot of that.
You experienced that? Where was the boarding school?
Boarding school was in Corrales, New Mexico.
Okay.
So like close to Albuquerque, kind of like on the outskirts. That's where it was. And so, I went there for 4 years. And then after that, I went to college in another Christian college university as well.
Okay. Yeah. And then you started singing in high school. You sang all the way through. Did you do like musical or any of that kind of stuff or just more like?
So I did actually some musicals in high school.
Yeah.
And I was also part of choir, drama as well. And then going into college, I joined the gospel choir.
Cool.
Which was a big eye-opening experience. We did like some tours and stuff. And I got some opportunities to like really hone in my craft as far as like a singer. And that was, I always like kind of think back to those days as like me learning my craft kind of.
Yeah. So then did you just go to college for 4 years?
I went to college for 4 years, studied corporate communications.
Did you study hard? Were you a good student? Did you party? What was that?
I didn't actually party.
No.
But you know what? There are other vices outside of partying that I got in trouble with.
Such as?
Well, actually, that's not even bad or anything like that. So the religion I'm associated with is Seventh-day Adventism.
Okay.
And so basically from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, you're not allowed to go out to eat. You're not allowed to watch TV. None of those things. And
sundown Saturday?
Sundown Friday to sundown Saturday night.
Okay.
Like you're not supposed to spend money. Like you're really, it's all about, God, like they call it the Sabbath is like the day of rest.
For Saturday.
Yeah. They call it the Sabbath.
And I feel like do Jewish folks abide
Jewish
by that
folks
same
also
rule?
abide by that too as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So I guess like when you say that, like I was definitely going out to eat, I was watching TV, like whatever those kind of things. I was breaking the laws,
Saturday
the
rule.
Sabbath rules. Yeah. But
how did you feel about that? Did you feel like guilt and shame around that?
No, and honestly, I didn't. I think it was more so a foreshadowing about what was to come. Because, I got married, actually, right shortly after college. I worked for the university. Met my ex-wife there, and we got married, moved to California, and then we got a divorce like a year and 1 month later, and I moved my ass back to Texas, and then I started exploring other things, like partying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I think like going through the heartache of the breakup, or just like the intensity of like what that comes, and not ever being used to remedying anything when I was in college and high school with substances such as alcohol. I was introduced to it and went full throttle.
Yeah.
like with it.
It's like you're getting divorced. Try this. It'll help you forget about it.
And I was doing it like every weekend. I remember I'm not proud to say this, but there was a lot of moments where I would say I was driving home drunk. Like a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I did too. I mean, this is back. What year did you graduate from college?
I graduated from college in 1999.
So we're the same age. I graduated in 2000.
This is our year.
And yeah, it is our year.
It is.
And it's 2025 now. And I'm actually going to my 25-year reunion.
That's amazing,
Our
man.
20th was COVID, so it got canceled.
Yes.
And I never see my college friends because we all live in different cities.
Yeah.
But we did not have Uber.
No.
So like I used to like brag to people that I was a great drunk driver. Like it was just a thing. Like we played shows, and I drove all the time, like to the shows, home from the shows. I got one DWI. I was probably pulled over like 20 times. And I talked my way out of it. And it wasn't like I was like blacked out or anything like every time I got pulled over, but I had been drinking, and it's like, hey, we just played a show. We're driving home. But one time I got sent to Loose Derrick, to the Slammer.
Are you serious?
And got charged with the DWI.
Oh my gosh.
But the police officer did not show up. So I did not get convicted. I hired a lawyer and everything. But yeah, that was in my early 20s. But I would continue to drink and drive after that. I was way more cautious about it.
Yeah.
But it was hard playing in a band. Like, what are you going to do? Put all of your gear in a taxi cab or something? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Now I don't drink. So I don't know. But I guess like the last, when I used to play shows and I was drinking, I got a smaller bass amp. I was thinking over there that I can fit into an Uber XL and bring my bass. And like when I was drinking, I stopped driving, when I was probably like in my late 20s.
Smart.
Or whenever Uber came along.
Yeah.
But maybe early 30s.
Yeah. The thing with, when I got into like the music scene and everything kind of accelerated. But you got to think about it. Like I wasn't drinking from when people typically drink as high school or some even middle school, but like I wasn't drinking then. And so basically I was drinking like, I was trying to catch up where everyone else was. So I had this liver that was still ready to go, and definitely taking advantage of like weekends and stuff, and drinking things I've never drunk before, but also just the feeling that you get from drinking. And then when I got into music, when you talk about driving drunk, I definitely, and again, I'm not proud to say this, but there's a number of times that I've driven blackout drunk, and I had no idea like how I parked the car, how I got there, had no recollection.
Yeah.
And I also remember like the days when I would get like faded or just blackout drunk, but then I'd be able to get over my hangover like an hour after waking up. And then once the mid 30s started hitting, and then the 40s, like that's when everything kind of started changing. Yeah.
I quit really. When I met you, I was sober, I think, or I just started drinking again or something. But I quit for a year when I was like 35.
Yeah.
And I quit for 6 years when I was 37. And then I'm now like a little over a year that I haven't drank. I took like a year off, and then I'm back on the sober train. And it's just better for me at this stage of life. But yeah, we partied really hard with Boys Named Sue and my band, my country bands. So you came back to Dallas from LA, and what were you doing for work?
Well, back in California, I was in the Central Valley. Actually, I was a human resources director at a convalescent home.
Okay.
And I was fresh out of college.
What is a convalescent home?
It's basically a retirement.
Okay.
So I was, I was working I was like the youngest guy there. And, the story behind that is my ex-wife, her dad owned the place.
Okay.
And so basically he's like created this position, or a position that his son-in-law, or his son actually, was doing at the time, moved his son up a position and then brought me in. So I came in and there was a lot of hesitancy from the people that worked there. Like, who is this punk kid? You know, I remember my head was shaved and everything. And I was like really young, and all the directors of the hospital, everyone gave me the side eye. But it's funny that when the divorce happened, everyone was super cool and I'd become friends with all of them and stuff. But so when I got back from the divorce, I was like, just not in the right headspace. So I took on a job in retail, and a friend of mine opened up a space in Victory Park, actually in the West Village first. And I worked at the store, and then I just started selling clothes, and it became like a profession in a way where I was having clients, and I was just making good money as like almost like a professional shopper, personal shopper.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't need one because I wear a t-shirt and sweatpants. So I'm like, I'm a fashionista.
I love that. I love the T-Man, by the way.
Yeah, Sierra Farrell.
So
do you know
cool.
her?
No, man.
Oh, man. She's so good. She's like an Americana songstress.
That's amazing.
Her voice is amazing. I'll text you.
Text me that. I do dig that T.
Her music. She just played at the factory, and it was badass. So, when did you start doing your music, like playing shows?
So I got in this band before the Larry G stuff, and we started playing just like some local shows. The name of the band was Otis.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, ODIS.
Yeah.
And our kind of like claim to fame, I passed my CD on to Terry James from the Lex and Terry show, and they were doing stuff with the Edge back then. And we got somehow our music on the radio. They got us onto Edge Fest. We played that, and we had like a nice little local run, and then from that, we did the whole band. I did the whole band thing. And when I kind of figured that wasn't going anywhere, we kind of all went our separate ways. That's when I started going solo, the solo project, which became Larry G. And that's where I got with Bo. And we created these songs with the now Texas Gentleman, like some of those members in his cabin in Louisville, I believe it was.
How did you meet Bo Bedford? What a gem to the world Bo Bedford is.
I can't thank him enough for everything like he's done for me. But I met Bo through Jonathan Tyler and the Northern Lights because he was playing with them at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know like how. I think we had always gotten conversations about, hey man, if you ever want to do something for yourself outside of Otis, like let me know. And I was like, yeah, for sure. And I remember when I started doing these demos that I was making, I started sending the songs to him, and he was like, dude, I got to do this. Like, we got to do this. And I remember we got in his cabin, and he took all like the rough demos that I had made and basically was the maestro behind creating the songs themselves, like, and producing and co-writing. And that was when the debut EP Weekends was birthed. It was right there in that cabin. It all happened there. And it's crazy because everyone that was a part of that whole moment, they're all doing like crazy things now, good, big things, so
it's like who all was there?
Yeah. So you had like Daniel Creamer, of the Gentleman, Scott Lee of the Texas Gentleman. I remember Aaron Haynes. He also played with the Gentleman and the Quaker City Nighthawks as well.
Yeah.
Jeff Daisy, I believe, was there and, done stuff with Leon Bridges, and now Nathaniel Ratliff. He's one of the Night Sweats. And then Daniel Hardaway, He's one of the Night Sweats like as well now. And they weren't and some weren't necessarily on that album, but people that have, played with me are doing great stuff. Like Taylor Nix, she's a great backing vocalist. She sings with Abraham Alexander. Everyone in there is just immersed in this community of musicians in DFW.
They have that crew of people. They just have like their own like meta or something. Like it's this vibe. And I never really knew any of them until I met you through doing Party Police and played that. And then I got connected and always followed them. And then Bo actually did a record for me in 2019. And then Jason just did a record, and really Bo's just like got so busy. And then I got Jason, then Jason's so busy. He moved to LA.
Yeah.
And, but it was really fun doing both of those up there at Modern and just hanging out with all of those people. And like Scott Lee played on my stuff, and Ryan Ake,
yeah.
I mean,
I love those
and
guys.
And Taylor runs that studio basically. She like hits me with the invoices.
Yeah. No,
and she'll sing some backups too when she's out there, and it's just like just good vibing, amazing musicians, but world-class human beings above all.
World-class human beings for sure.
And you're like meeting them like at kind of like at their, when they were young.
Young. Everyone's young.
Like in their 20s.
The run that we had was so much fun, a lot to learn. But it definitely, like when people say like that was a moment, there was a moment in time. It was definitely a moment in time.
Yeah. So then you got the album out, and it, I feel like you just, even with Otis, it's like you, just like immediately it appeared this way from my perspective. Like you got a good following, like you knew a lot of people, I guess, and you had a lot of friends, and then you're good, obviously, combined with that, and then that's a good formula.
I think like, especially during an age when like social media wasn't prevalent, it was really about getting out there and shaking hands, getting to know people, and then like really connecting with your fans, like when you get out there and stuff. And still to this day, I get people who went to shows that will tell me, they'll say stuff like, we conceived our child to this one song. And you're just like, oh my gosh, man.
You are a sexy singer.
No, man.
I can see
I'm
that.
like, no, man. But I don't know. Like, I think back then it was so much different, like, than it is today, as far as like how social media is used today as it was back then.
Yeah. I'm figuring that out right now with this podcast.
Yeah.
And I haven't marketed the pod at all until this week. And
wow. Okay.
I've started doing video. And my friend Logan is acting as a producer, but we've been investing in AI and making shorts and making the clips and like just learning how to do this. And then I've been speaking to my music friends like John Pedigo and Joshua Ray Walker, and I've been paying attention just because my mind goes there to the music business to see how the bands promote themselves now. Yeah. But it's another world. And I'm friends with Katie Tupin. Do you know her? She was in Houndmouth.
Okay.
We're acquaintances, but I follow her, and she started a new country band. So she started an Instagram page from scratch, and watching her work that, like how she's been doing it, like she knows what to do, and she's so disciplined about it and constantly putting videos up. And it's like, if you come to a show and wear a cowboy hat, then you get a free t-shirt or something.
That's so cool.
And just all of these things and being super engaged. And then that's like one layer of you need to do that. And then the other layers, I think that as you get like some of these larger bands like Bright Eyes is playing Friday. Yeah. I see Bright Eyes videos on my Facebook feed constantly because they're probably spending
a lot of money
like
on those ads.
$5,000 or something on ads for this one show. Mm-hmm. I would imagine that they're spending something like that. So then they're spending money on ads. People have to be spending money on Spotify plays.
You have to.
And that, I don't know the secret to that, but like, I'm curious about that too, just from my own music I'm releasing. Like, how do you do that? And it's like, it's fake. That some of that stuff is like fake, but also does it like work, and you can like, it gets in front of more people that way?
I think
the ads obviously do.
I think it's definitely a play between ads, but it's also a play between some of it between real and fake, but it's also finding a balance between the two, to where the real connects with the fake and then can like build from there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's about kind of like that lightning, you know, but really what it comes down to is a lot of organic growth. You know, and a lot of people don't necessarily like that, but organic growth, I think, comes from consistency. When it comes to social media and posting and all this stuff, you got to have content, but you got to post every day. It's like with your music, you got to come up with an idea on like how to get it out, but you have to be consistent with it. And you can't like worry about your views, you know, the looks or anything. It's like you're constantly throwing rice at the wall, but at the same time, you have to do it because one, the algorithm has to eventually wake up. And if you're not doing it, you know, it gets stale, you know, but you got to find that niche and continue to push, you know, your content and everything out there. Cause I know there's a lot of talented artists that I know of that, have the talent to do stuff, but they're afraid of like what people are going to say because of how it's going to look, you know, and that's where I think now, having gone through so much in my life, like I just don't care anymore.
Oh yeah.
I don't care what other people think.
That's such a great way to be.
I'm like, it's just like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to like post whatever I want. I don't care. Like if I don't get the views that everyone else does. I always tell people, like younger artists, to go into this with like blinders on and stop comparing yourself to like other people. Like, run your own race, like be consistent with that, but don't try to like gauge your success over someone else's like story.
We also grew up in a time where it was like certain things like online were very polished. You have these photos, but like the music videos, the way they were done, it's almost like the music videos of like the Aerosmith days that I used to love watching when I was a kid. It's almost cooler to see my favorite artists like playing a live show or like standing in by White Rock Lake playing a song.
Right.
And that, I feel like that is cooler now than like a highly produced music video. And so
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I had a conversation with someone about this where it's like, no one really cares about music videos as much as they do anymore. People are looking at their reels or TikToks and seeing someone put like a phone in front of them and actually either really sing to a song, or you're lip syncing to a song kind of like with a short little message. And you're basically singing like the strongest part of the song, because reels, they're kind of like a loop. And so you want that best part with like a theme behind your post. And that's how people are getting their music out there, those clips. And then they're also purchasing ads based off that. If you can connect with something like that, that even comes with the stuff with podcasting as well. It's that one clip that has that, you know, that whole moment where they're spitting some knowledge, and it's like that moment that people are taking these raw moments. And that's the thing now, is like people want raw as opposed to polished.
Yeah. I definitely do.
You know, we're just in a day where we've seen it all before. We've seen like the aesthetic, like there was a time where people were really obsessed with aesthetic when it came to like my pictures, my post, like the colors and everything need to look good on the grid. Whereas now it's like, just post, like just share your story. Like, don't think about it, just do it. Like, put it out there and be consistent with it. People will want to know your story. They want to get behind you. And for the longest time, I don't think I really had much of a story outside of the fact that, I was this local artist from Dallas, got lucky, had this opportunity to be on Jimmy Kimmel. And that was kind of like my thing.
Tracking back to that, so you started Larry G. You make this music with all these badass people,
right?
And then you put it out, and immediately playing shows.
Yeah, we're playing like some really cool shows. We had this opportunity to jump on the Warped Tour when the Warped Tour was still a thing,
Yeah,
and they basically the contest. It was a contest, and I remember I was doing my own PR. I was doing everything all on my own. And so I was like submitting all my music to anything and everything that I could find.
Smart.
And there was this company at the time called Our Stage, and they had this contest for artists to submit their music, and whoever got selected would get to go on the second leg of the Warped Tour. So it was like X amount of days, like 20 some dates. And I remember I was like, I'm going to do it. So I submitted it. They hit me back, and I think it was just because the music was so different, because what the Warped Tour is. And so it was like, they were like, we love this idea. So we got in a van, we drove all the way to Detroit. That was the first one, because we rented the van, but we dropped it off there, and we got on a bus. They gave us a bus. So we had our own bus to like go through and do the whole tour.
Your first tour.
My first tour.
Band,
yeah. And it was like the coolest thing. I mean, granted, we didn't have like a whole team with us that all these other acts like had like, teams to like put their merch and everything out. So it was like every day was like a grind. Like we would always like pray for asphalt, to be able to like lug our gear around. If not, we were just like pushing our merch and stuff through
like grass fields.
Grass fields and stuff. And it was crazy. Like one day our booth or our merch booth would be facing like the alternative stage. The next it was like metal. So we'd just be like listening to metal like all day long. It was like different genres. They had a hip hop area as well, but it wasn't as big at the time. But every night all the artists would get together, and it was kind of like a little party at the end of every day show or whatever it was. And the catering, I remember, was like really, really good.
Yeah. That is so cool.
But it was during that my tour manager through Our Stage, he kind of got on my ear. He's like, hey, there's another contest. And I'm like, oh yeah, what is it? He's like, Jimmy Kimmel. And he's like, I'm not saying, but I hear if you enter, you may or may not get chosen. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I didn't say anything. And I was like, okay. So I submitted, and next thing I know, like a few months later, he's like, hey, just letting you know they're going through the artists and the acts, and you may or may not be chosen. And I knew that we were gonna. And so we only had a few days to like get everything set up, because nothing was guaranteed that we were going to get on the show. But I was in New York. I had to take like a red eye to LA. The band had to like get like Bowen and the guys, they got in a van and drove all the way to LA to meet us. And, it was one night in December where we performed on Kimmel. That was crazy.
Tell me more.
It was crazy. Well, one, it happens so fast. I actually never got to meet him. I just met everyone else but him.
Yeah.
The green room was like what the green room was. I remember, that day, it was crazy.
What year is this?
2011.
Yeah.
2011, 2012.
And again, this is when like playing on Kimmel was like huge.
And you think about it,
I think it still is now.
But social media wasn't what it was back then.
Yeah, so Netflix wasn't what it was.
No.
Like you didn't have all of the streaming stuff going on.
No, you think about it now is like, if that opportunity happened now, that situation might have been different, you know?
Yeah.
I remember that night thinking and hearing just from everyone in my ears, like, your life's going to change. Like, this is it, you know? And we performed the songs and nothing changed. Nothing changed.
You're like, hey,
we had some great.
where's the money?
We had some great opportunities. I remember we did some like showcasing for like some labels in New York and LA, and you know, at that time everything just like fell on deaf ears, and they were like, "Oh, the band's great. We like the performance, but we're just not hearing the hit." And the music industry at that time was so different from what it is today.
How so?
I think because of we're looking for the hit kind of thing, you know,
Instead of like, we're looking for the person.
if we're looking for the person or the quality of the show, the music itself in general,
or the band, yeah, because that is so true. It's less. I don't know if it's less about songs, because songs are still important, but there is so much, like, when you become famous now, people are going to know everything about you, and you're going to be spending more time on the camera, like, with your personality, it seems like, for pop stars now, than just like, here's the single and you go to the concert and see them. It's more like, no, you're getting this glimpse into their life constantly, so that adds this new piece to the formula.
I think for the most part, the idea of like being able to say you were on Kimmel has like been cool, in the sense of I've been able to use that part as like a pitching reel. Like, if someone is interested in hiring me for something. But when it comes to like, I think back to like when that happened, and I feel like if I would have played my cards a little differently, it might have been different. But at the same time, I don't live in the shoulda, woulda, coulda. I'm just more so like, it is what it is. I learned from it, and it was a great experience.
Yeah. So then what happened after that?
So after like are you talking about after nothing?
Yeah, after Kimmel.
Kimmel, I mean,
so you have this.
We had some great opportunities.
Meteoric rise.
We played some awesome music festivals. I went back out to LA and started working with some other producers that people behind me at the time said, you need to work with people outside of Bo. Or you and Bo need to work with other people, like, to try to find the hit. And I think around that time is when there was a fatigue factor, where it was just like, nothing's hitting. And I think at that time, both he and I, definitely he started getting busy with like other things, like with his career, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And for me, I think honestly, like I tried to do so many different things. I remember I tried to do like a pop thing. I even had this COVID project called Cabas, where it was totally alternative pop, like a different name and everything. And I kind of like the whole Larry G thing almost kind of faded in a way. Where one, because of the people I was working with on this Cabas project were like, we want to work with you on this Cabas project, but you have to like kind of disassociate yourself with the Larry G stuff. Like they were like, we're going to give you this new persona. I guarantee you we can get you a label deal. And at that point I was like, yeah, sure. Let's do this. And I think this was like my last thing. When it did not work out with that whole thing, I was almost like burnt out with music in a way. And I had obviously COVID hit a lot of people hard. And so I kind of transitioned in the creative field, where I was doing photography, working as a content creator for an branding agency for artists. And I was kind of like out of music for a while. And I did not like touch or think about anything music related until I got diagnosed with kidney disease.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when was that?
So May of 2023, I went in for a routine eye exam, and I the optometrist took some X-rays of my eyes and noticed some hemorrhaging, and he was like, I need to check your blood pressure. He noticed the BP was extremely high, so he stopped the appointment and basically sent me to urgent care.
Wow.
So yeah, I was about 177 at that time was my BP over like 100. And then he sent me over to urgent care, went to urgent care. It went like 188 over like 110. And then
yeah, like if I go into urgent care, my blood pressure goes to that anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I tell that to my doctor all the time. It's like, my blood pressure's fine when I'm sitting in my house, dude.
Yeah.
And you're like sitting there with needles and shit and looking at me
Exactly.
like my blood pressure gets high.
So then they go, we can't do anything. You need to go to Medical City. So they sent me to Medical City. And I remember walking into the emergency room with my girlfriend. And I was like, don't worry about this. They're probably going to give me some beta blockers. We'll get some dinner after this. And it was that visit became 3 days and 2 nights.
Oh my gosh.
And my BPA, when they checked me in, was 245 over like 120.
Wow.
Yeah. I actually did an MRI that night. I did a CAT scan. It was like all these things happening at once.
Not knowing what's really going on.
Not knowing what's going on. And for years, like, it all comes back to me. Like, my dad is a physician, so I never had like a primary healthcare physician. And I would always go to him just to get checked up. But he had always given me a warning, like since 2017 or so, like, your BP's high, you need to get that checked. And in fact, the nephrologist that saw me, at Medical City was like, had I seen you like 3 years earlier, you wouldn't be in this position. And so they did a biopsy. The biopsy came back, and it was revealed that I had stage 4 kidney disease, IgA nephropathy, caused due to unchecked hypertension.
Oh my God. Man.
Yeah, and so. Yeah, I had high blood pressure that I was just being negligent about. And then when you think about it, to go back on top of it, living the lifestyle that I was living, like the drinking, I was on Adderall because I have ADHD, but I was drinking coffee, I was drinking energy drinks. My lifestyle was with processed foods was crazy. I was eating fast food for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I was just terrible with it, but I was also taking diet pills, everything you could think of. I was just really putting like bad stuff in my body. And when I got diagnosed, that's kind of like when everything like kind of changed. But it was really weird because
were you feeling like anything?
The crazy thing, and this is why they say high blood pressure is a silent killer.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
If I don't go see the optometrist, I'm probably not sitting here today.
Yeah.
Like, I'm dead for sure.
Wow.
I remember the Saturday, this is like for sure it happened. The Saturday before the Monday, because it was a Monday when I got my eyes checked, but that Saturday I was walking from my restroom to the bathroom, and I blacked out. Like, the lights went out. And I was like, yo, what? And I just attributed it to I was just tired. And one of the things with high blood pressure, just hypertension or kidney disease, is you're fatigued so much. So there's just days where I remember being so fatigued, laying down, and just attributing it to like long hours, long days, when in reality it was like my kidneys were kind of at their end, So my kidney percentage at that time was close to 10% kidney function.
Oh my God.
Uh-huh.
And here you are today.
Yeah.
You've changed. You've made big lifestyle changes.
Yeah, man.
I've seen you. You've been really open about this,
Right.
which I think is like amazing. That takes courage, and it helps other people when they can see you speaking so openly about your health issues.
Right.
Motivates me. I just got a colonoscopy. Like, I'm 47,
That's the best.
I was like delaying it. I was supposed to my doctor told me to get it at 45. I'm
Right.
turned 47 this summer, but I've had 3 friends get colon cancer. And our drummer for Boys Named Sue died of it. Scotty, years ago. But then as we get older, more friends are getting colon cancer because they weren't getting it checked. Random flukes. My friend Spring got it because she was donating blood, and they noticed like her blood levels were off, and she went to the doctor and found out, and she's actually the one that I saw out one night. And she's like, "Have you had a colonoscopy yet? Like, you need to go get one." But just doing that, and then I posted a picture of it on Instagram because I got so much shit from Spring, and also just the fear that overcomes you when you hear about your friends that get it. Then it's like, well, sometimes you don't want to know, even though you want to know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, now I've done it. So I'm going to be the annoying friend that's talking about it and bothering people. Like, cause man, at our age, it's these silent killers are all over the place.
Your body will, and your body in particular will thank you for taking those breaks and drinking.
Oh yeah,
for sure,
dude. I think about it all the time. Like if I didn't quit drinking back in 2015, I've drank for 1 year out of the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I didn't quit, what would my colonoscopy look like today?
Yeah.
Because I just drank a lot, man. I would average 9 or 10 drinks a day. And then with that, all the other poor choices, like skipping workouts, eating shittier food, like all that. So anyway, you like had a major wake up call.
Yeah.
And what's happened since then?
Well, since then, like, when I got diagnosed, like one of the main things that they told me, the doctor, the nephrologist was like, you can still eat the food you were eating. You can still go to Chick-fil-A. You could still, eat meat. You can still do you can still drink. They said you can have 1 to 2 drinks a night. And something just didn't sit right with me. And I remember like coming home from the hospital saying like, I gotta like figure this out. Like, I know that this sounds okay. And I might continue to keep doing it, but I'm like, I don't know. And, they were always telling me like, eventually you're going to go on dialysis, and from what I know of, with dialysis is that's basically 2 to 3 days out of your week where you're sitting down to a machine, having your blood cleaned out 4 or 5 hours, each time. And that point I was like, I'm not doing that. So I made a promise to myself that I was going to figure out, any way possible to like, keep my numbers steady to where I don't have to be there. And a friend of mine who owns a mental health wellness company, Eric Payton, with the company In Vivo, he set me up with this company called the McDougall Project. And basically their whole thing is plant-based. So they heal people through plant-based eating. Now, I was stupid in thinking I was going to get healed from my kidney disease, but I felt like my numbers could improve if I would do this. So one of the things that I had to commit was no more meat, no more alcohol. And as hard as some people would find that, it was easy for me.
It was.
I turned it off because I was like, I have no choice.
I want to live.
I want to live, and I don't want this. And it's crazy. Like, I started seeing the results immediately with my labs because my numbers were supposed to decline. Like my kidney function was close to 10. It went from 15 to 16 to 18%. And that may not sound like a lot to someone, but for someone who's fighting for their life, to like not get on dialysis, because dialysis, you have about a 50% chance of living, after getting on dialysis. And I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm going to, fight that. And the other thing came where I was like, I'm going to walk 5,000 to 10,000 steps a day, just walk. And it was during those walks where I found some songs on an old Dropbox file, and they were songs that were supposed to be part of like the sophomore album to the album I did with Bo, Weekends. And I was like, man, these are some great songs. And I remember listening to them on my walks and just kind of feeling, one, nostalgic, but then two, like, these songs need to be heard. And it was, I kid you not, out of the blue, I got a call from Bo. Bo calls me out of, like, from nowhere, because he and I hadn't been in touch for a while. And he was like, hey, man, what's up? And he was just calling just to check up and see how I was doing. He said, I heard, about what happened. I'm so sorry. And that one, it meant a lot that he was even cool enough to, like, think about me and that with everything he has going on. But I also took that as a sign and basically said, hey, man, would you be cool if I release these songs, again? And he was like, by all means, do it. So I kind of made it a point that I was going to release these songs as if they were brand new and kind of treat it like an album rollout. Got in touch with the people at KXT. They were super supportive. Started releasing a single here, a single there. So it was kind of like a rollout that you would leading up to an album. And I ended up getting, like, on South by Southwest, which is crazy, playing, like, the album and the songs, like, had legs.
Last year.
It was like, I don't know how it happened. I'm playing this Funk Factory event with Poopery and Rolling Stone magazine. Shout out to Polly on that. But we ended up playing that, just getting these other opportunities. And then I released the album on the anniversary of my diagnosis with a show at the Kessler. And I specifically wanted to do that just because, it was kind of like those songs and the music and stuff kind of gave me life again, to where I wasn't going to let this disease dictate and kind of like be like who I was. Like, it reminded me of, like, my love for music, one, but just like who I am. And, then this past year we got nominated for an album of the year for this Dallas Entertainment Entertainment Awards. And we won. I mean, for songs from like 2013, 2016.
Yeah.
And so now, I've got that. And I mean, the bigger news is, I have a kidney transplant happening in June. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So how did that process work of getting on the transplant list?
Well, I got on the transplant list, I would say in 2024. And, one of the main things that they say for you being on the list is to share your story. Like, share your story. A lot of people, have some hesitancy when it comes to sharing stuff like that. But like I said, man, when your back's against the wall and you're like, I don't know, like, how much longer I have left to live, like, you're willing to do anything. And I just made it a point that I'm going to share my story. One, it'll also be good because I can help other people who are stubborn, just like I was, and won't get checked up. Hopefully this is their wake-up call and they can, like, see that. So I just started putting my story out there. The Observer got a hold of my story, and they did this piece basically talking about my situation. So it was kind of like a call to help. And on January the 14th, I got a call from the hospital this year. I was on the treadmill doing my 10,000 steps, and they basically said, hey, we just wanted to inform you, like, you've officially have a match. And that transplant will be taking place in June.
How does the match work where it takes so long to do the transplant?
Well, the match typically does take long because a lot of, you have to think about it. When you're on a list, you're not necessarily at the top.
Yeah.
And the only reason why this happened is because someone donated on my behalf.
Oh, wow.
And that can only happen from you putting your story out there.
Yeah.
So I was continuing to put it out there. I was continuing to put that link out there with my, the link to get you know, for people to fill out to be a potential donor. And that story with the Observer did like so much for me. I can't thank them enough, like for that opportunity. And also just like the work with KXT and them just like shining a light on the issue and just the music community in general. Like I never really felt more so embraced by the Dallas DFW like music community than I did when, you know, this whole thing like went down. Like so many people came up and basically said like, you know, I'm feeling for you, I'm supporting you, like either like sending good vibes or I'm sending prayers. And then like the messages that I was getting like on Instagram, like I was getting DMs from like strangers, people I never knew that said, give me the link, I'm going to donate, you know, on your behalf.
Wow.
And you don't know if it's going to be them because HIPAA laws, they have to keep all that stuff separate. So I don't know if it's so-and-so or not, but, you know, just to know that there were people out there who didn't know me, you know, at all from Adam that were inspired from my story to be able to want to donate an organ on my behalf is super humbling.
Yeah, man. That's amazing. I can't even imagine going through that.
Yeah, it's tough. Being that I'm stage 5 now, like I definitely feel it like my body. Like I definitely fatigue, like in the mornings and stuff, and at nights, like when I get tired, I get really tired.
You still look really good.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks. The diet, I definitely attribute that to the diet.
Yeah, it's like a glow about you.
It's all greens.
Yeah.
Like I'm just greens and vegetables.
I should at least do that for a few weeks.
You'll honestly, man, like seriously, give yourself a week on that where you're doing like a green smoothie like in the morning and at night and use water as your base. But just basically it's like spinach, kale, frozen bananas, frozen pineapples, maybe some blueberries, and then like some fiber, like 4 scoops of fiber, tablespoons. Like you do that every day. You have 1 in the morning, 1 at night. Try to keep your meals like clean. You will see a difference. You will feel a difference because I do feel good. Like I always tell people I feel better than I've ever felt. I just have 2 bad kidneys. And because of that, I still feel the way that I do sometimes.
Yeah. So are you still religious? Are you still a 7-day Adventist?
I do.
Seventh day?
I do. What I will say is that I do believe in God. I do still associate myself with the Adventist church. I definitely do think, you know, that I say that I am a Christian. But I'm also just very spiritual, you know, more than anything. I don't say like I'm going to church every weekend. But I don't know, man. I think in a position like mine, there's definitely a higher source of power, God, whatever you believe, that's like looking after me right now with everything going on.
Have you prayed a lot through this?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you meditate?
Yes. Yeah. I meditate. I pray. There's like moments when I was diagnosed first, man, where I was on my knees in the shower a lot, just praying, like no one's looking or anything. And I'm just saying, do whatever you need to like keep me away from dialysis. That was just my main thing. Or just, I never asked to be healed. You know, like I knew like my decisions and the way that I lived are the reasons why I'm here today, you know, like my situation. And I never tried to like ever like feel sorry for myself. I think like at the beginning I did have that sense of feeling, but my father during my process when I got sick, went through a quadruple bypass. He, like surgery, and he has been dealing with thyroid cancer for the last close to 20 years. And he's never once like complained or said, why me or anything like that. And so I remember him and I having like some really good, strong conversations. And I was like, if this guy is going through everything he's going through, but he's still maintaining a positive attitude, like I can't complain, you know?
Yeah.
Like I can't feel sorry for myself. And so I look at this now, like this was meant to happen. And I think I'm here to like share my story to like help other people not make the same mistakes I did, you know, and maybe just raise awareness as to this silent killer.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for doing that. I like to ask, have you ever had a mystical experience?
Tell me, like kind of break it down, then I might be able to tell you.
An encounter with God. Or even like, I was thinking like just Bo calling you right when you're looking at your phone. Like that to me is a mystical experience.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, like I was going to say that's probably
anything that was like the moment, like right there.
Where it's like you're connected to Bo and he's feeling that you're thinking about this music you made with him and he calls you. Like
and he calls me out of the blue.
That's a mystical experience for sure.
Yeah. And you know what too? I'll say.
That's a God thing.
I will say too, I think too, like the feeling I got anytime someone would reach out to me on social media out of the blue and like say something like, I want to donate.
Yeah.
And that always like, but when you call mystical, it's definitely that call from Bo. I remember exactly where I was sitting on my sofa at my old place that my girlfriend and I lived at. And I saw him calling. Yeah, basically that was it. Yeah.
I think that I found that when you start acknowledging things like that, then you start seeing more of them occur. And
that's cool.
It's a little practice that I've been engaging in the last few years.
Yeah.
Even like when I'm making, one of the big things I do is when I'm making a decision about something, I look to see what time it is. And then if I have like numbers that I speak this number language with my higher self or whatever. And it's like, if it's a 30, like a 333, I have an 1111 tattoo. Like 1111's like a hell yeah, go do it, you know?
Yeah.
Or like a 333 or 111 or like some kind of magic number like that.
Right.
And I'll look like a few times or even just a 33 or it's 123.
Yeah.
Or 234, like 234.
I've definitely
like
had something
like that.
like those little things. They do happen on occasion.
Yeah. And I think the more you start paying attention and acknowledging them, and I'm always like, thank you, God, for your help with that. Like, boom. And then it's just like, you get this little extra, like level of mysticism to your life, which makes it pretty cool.
I will say too, like when things started like happening with the release of the old music, like it just felt like things were happening like outside of my control.
Yeah.
And I remember telling someone when I was being interviewed, I was like, I don't know like what's happening, but I feel like I'm just a part of this vehicle and I'm just not necessarily along for the ride, but I'm receiving everything like and open to whatever else is to come.
I love that. What's your favorite restaurant? Chick-fil-A.
Well,
they're really good.
There's a place called Written in the Seasons, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Written in the Seasons.
Where?
The first place was that we went to was in Bishop Arts, and now they have a new restaurant in in Uptown. But I mean, as far as like spots, I would have to say Bowen House.
Oh yeah, that's a great place.
Yeah, that used to be my old stomping grounds. It's crazy, like to think like going to these places now and being sober for the last 2 years, just seeing how everyone else goes through, like, it opens your eyes. Like a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like it's the opportunity to live in an entirely new reality structure.
Yeah.
Where it's like, whoa, what the fuck was I doing for the last 20 years? Like, because you get in it, and at first it was really weird. And I finally am feeling like comfortable. And even when I fell off the wagon for a year, I tell people this, like, I'm actually more comfortable being sober now than when I drink. Like, it makes me feel like, when I went back into it, it just didn't feel, normal. It didn't feel right. It used to be something that I looked forward to, drinking and having cocktails and like sitting on the patio at the Bowen house or something, or going to Lakewood Landing. And it was, I would crave that time. But then even when I started drinking again, I liked alcohol, don't get me wrong, but I just had a new heightened level of consciousness that would not go away around the drinking, where I'm kind of like feeling like my higher self is sitting there.
Right. And
I had blocked him out from my life for many years, but now he's there and he's not going anywhere. And he's like, you really want that?
Yeah.
Are you just going to slur? Like, well, you know how you're going to feel? Are you going to drive home now? Like, what is going on? And I have this voice in my head that makes it tough to go back. And that's a good thing.
For me, when I think about the idea of like getting the kidney transplant, I think for me, like moving forward after that, one is like recovery, but would I even go back to like those ways? And I have to, and I think about that person that went out of their way to like give me that kidney. And I don't think I can ever go back to like being that person.
Yeah. Yeah, man. What's your favorite vacation destination?
Italy. I loved Italy.
That has gotta be the Truckin' On podcast guest #1 vacation destination of all of my guests. So many people recommend it. I've never been. I've got to go.
But I will also say this: Italy and then Bangkok.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
2 places I really want to go.
So my sister and her husband and their daughters, they lived in Bangkok, and for 10 years, and they loved it. I went to visit in Bangkok, and it was an amazing experience. I mean, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
Everything's cheap there, but Italy for sure, you got to do it and do it right. Like when you do it.
Yeah. I got to do it. Are you a reader? Do you have a book that you would recommend?
I haven't done like as much reading like as I want to, so I'm not going to like say that. I would say I listen to more podcasts than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What podcast is your go-to?
I like Rich Roll.
Oh, like
his stuff
him.
is like
that's really good for you. Sober vegan.
Yeah, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like some of his stuff. I like some of the stuff that I've been seeing with Mel Robbins. Like her stuff's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I do like Rich Roll's podcast just because of just how simple it is, and there's no fluff to it.
Yeah, I love him. His book is so good too.
I have not read his book.
His first book. I'm sure he has another one now, but it's about doing the Ultraman and that whole journey of him getting healthy and everything. Do you have a quote that you would like to share? You did not prepare. I didn't tell you any of these questions, so I know you're not prepared, but...
No, I'm not. I don't necessarily. Well, wait, hold on. I don't.
That's okay. I asked myself these questions when I first started the podcast and interviewed myself. And I didn't prepare for it. And I asked myself what the quote was, and I totally blanked out. And I though have quote notes on my phone, so I keep track of my favorite quotes.
But you know what's crazy is that I'm the type where when I scroll and I see the quotes, I'm always saving them.
Yeah. So like what I'm going to do to help you out is I'm going to tell you the last quote note from my quote notes. Actually, I remember what it is. The Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
He said meditation allows you to respond rather than react. Isn't that good?
I love that. Yeah.
Gives you that perspective.
You know, that's one thing that I'm learning right now is to not engage. Learning the discipline of not engaging when, like, yeah, just not engaging.
Yeah. Like in arguments or like negative
arguments or
stuff.
anything, not engaging if it's not going to like bring like a positive outcome or anything like that. No.
That's so wise. And yeah, I'm the same way. Of course, there are those times. I have 2 little kids and an ex-wife, and like I love them all, but there's just life, and sometimes you can't be the Zen master
like
all of the time.
Stay calm.
But it is this choice, like how to respond, and and that meditation really helps me with that, just to be more mindful of my, like how I'm going to respond to things. So, man, what about music? If you there's a song that you want to share, one of your songs, and then I'll have Logan put it on at the end of the podcast.
Oh, man, I would honestly say it's Find Your Way to My Heart. That was the first song that I released, based off of the conversation with Bo.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the Kickstarter to, kind of get me off from my subconscious grieving that I was going through. Because you go through that period when you get first diagnosed where it's like a punch in the gut and you're kind of delusional and not sure like what's happening with your life. Am I going to live? You're just not sure. And I remember hearing that song and the beat when it kicks in, it's like a wake up, like getting smacked in the face to like bring you back to reality. Like, hey, wait, hold up. Like, I'm still alive. I still have these dreams, these passions of like wanting to do music. Let's go.
Hell yeah. We're going to play it right at the end of this show.
Awesome.
How do people track you down?
Basically, the best way is through Instagram, and that's the Larry Gee Music.
Right on, brother. I'm so glad to have you in my life.
Same here, man.
When does the transplant take place?
June the 2nd.
June the 2nd. I'm going to be keeping you in my thoughts and prayers always.
Thank you, man.
And
I appreciate that.
Thanks for making the trek over here today.
Yes. We'll have to do like a post-surgery.
For sure. I was thinking that earlier. Yeah, we will definitely do that.
Yeah.
And that's all I got.
Well, I appreciate it. Man, there's so much gratitude as far as like still being able to like have like platforms like this to share a story, and that people care enough to like want to know like how you're doing. So it means a lot that you reached out and kind of like gave me this opportunity to just break bread with you.
Yeah, dude. It's been too long.
It's been too long, man. New Year's Eve at Gillies? What?
2013.
That's crazy, man.
Party police.
I know.
Wow. Those were the days.
It's 2025. It was crazy.
All right, Larry Gayao.
Yes, you said it.
Larry G.
You said it.
Thanks for trucking on.
Appreciate it.
Peace.